In this video, I'm going to go over the basics of Mendel's law of segregation and how it applies to our actual DNA. So here I drew out my character's DNA. Well, let's call her Diana, and Diana is a human being like yourself. So if you're like Diana, you have 23 pairs of chromosomes that we can see kind of drawn out here. So each pair they're called homologous chromosomes, and what that means is that each chromosome comes from one of your own parents. So if we look at chromosomes labeled 1 and the pair is labeled 1, we see that this chromosome, Diana, let's say, got from her mom, and this chromosome she got from her dad. So those two we call homologous chromosomes, and we can refer to them as chromosomes number 1. And then we see she has chromosomes number 2, 3, 4, all the way down to her 23rd pair. So in total she has 46 chromosomes. And now if we look here, this little dashed line represents a gene on one of her chromosomes. And we'll say that this gene is for eye color. So it's a little bit more complex than I drew it out here, but for the sake of learning the basics of genetics, we can just say that all her eye color is influenced exclusively by this one gene. Okay, and this gene, remember, like I wrote down, has two versions. It has a capital B, which represents brown eye color, and which let's say she got from her mom, and from her dad she got a lowercase b for blue eyes. So her dad was blue-eyed, let's say her mom was brown-eyed, and so now she has one gene, or one allele, one version of the gene for blue eyes, for brown eyes, and one for blue eyes, right? So her genotype would be capital B, lowercase b. And like we read, since uppercase B, aka brown, is dominant, Diana will have brown eyes, right? And if we look here, let's say she mates with somebody and she has to give up only one of her chromosomes, right? This is called segregation. So she segregates one of those two chromosomes. So either this chromosome is going to her son or daughter, or this chromosome. It cannot be both, it has to be only one. So one from each pair. We see here pair number 1, only one of these goes up and one of these goes out, right? And so that's kind of where we get into Mendel's law of independent assortment. On chromosome 2, we can see here that I drew another gene, and I used H to represent the hair type. And we'll say capital H is dominant for curly hair, and lowercase h is recessive for straight hair. And so now we see that Diana has a genotype of capital H, lowercase h. And so her hair will be curly, right? So just to reiterate, she has, again, brown eyes, because her genotype is uppercase B, lowercase b, and she has curly hair because of her genotype uppercase H, lowercase h. So now the question is, are the chance of her children going to be higher to have curly hair if she gives up blue eyes, for example? To say that again, if she gives up blue eyes during the segregation process, will either of these be more likely to be given up with it? And if we think about that for a second, we realize actually not really, right? Because each chromosome pair is segregated independently, right? This is where independent assortment comes in. That means that if she gives up this chromosome, and then for number 2, it's actually still 50-50 chance. She'd give up either uppercase H or lowercase h. Let's say she gives up uppercase H, then for this one she'll give up this one, then maybe this one, right? But if she has another child, then it's totally random again. So what this kind of tells us is that genes on different chromosomes actually get inherited independently, right? And this is what Mendel noticed with his pea plants. He noticed that if one plant got a green gene, that had no relevance to whether it was going to be round or wrinkled, tall or short, right? And that is what people believed all the way up until we kind of really understood what a chromosome was. And then we kind of thought about another question. Wait a minute. What if the gene for, let's say, I don't know, hair color, right, which we'll use maybe G here and lowercase g here, what if they're on the same chromosome? Well, right, and I'll draw that here as well. We'll say uppercase G and lowercase g. Well, we see that, wait a minute, if lowercase b, if this chromosome goes to her child, doesn't lowercase g come right with it? Oh, So that is what we get into with linkage, right? And linkage means when there is a chromosome, or I mean a gene on the same chromosome as another gene, right? It will travel with it to the child.